Okay, so with the Dow up close to 150, a strong jobs report, guess who we have with us right now? I expect to see a big smile. I demand a smile. There you thank you very much indeed. Larry Kudlow right there at the White House. Larry, forgive me, but I want to talk about tax cuts, first of all. Reportedly, you're the guy in charge of a new round of tax cuts coming up in the future. Can you tell us more about this? Because I can't see this Congress allowing any more tax cuts.
Well, look, this is kind of a new rendition of an older story. We're calling it Tax Cuts 2.0. The president has referred to it. We've spoken about it. This is something we're working on. Right now, it's informal. I don't really have anything specific to report.
Is it kind of a campaign issue?
Yes,
Vote for me, and you'll get tax cuts in the second term.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't know if I don't know. I'd put it exactly that way. What I would say is this: the president would love to see another round of lower taxes to help middle-income workers and wage earners, give them as much disposable income as possible. We are talking. Again, informally at this moment, we're talking to the best folks, my friend Kevin Brady on Capitol Hill. We'll be talking to House members. We'll be talking to Senate members. We're obviously working inside the administration with our colleagues here. There's nothing formal in the process. I don't have any details, but we would like to see some middle-class tax cuts. It will be announced during the campaign, and let's just see where it takes us. That's all.
Okay, 128,000 new jobs reported in today's report. Was it actually better than that? The president implies that it's more like 300,000 if you add in revisions and GM. Was it much better?
That is correct. This really was a blowout number, and I just want to say Americans are working and earning really, really well. The president was correct. I'll just go through it. I hope you have a pencil and a clean pad, Stu. I want you to nail this down.
Get right at it, Larry, please.
The unadjusted number is 128,000, which was a lot higher than the consensus of 75. But look, you got to go this way. Revisions in the prior months, 95,000. That gets you to 223,000. You also have to adjust for 60,000 workers in the GM strike. That's very important. That gets you to 283. And the Census Bureau people who left the job, that gets you to 20,000. The total is, in fact, 300,000, 303,000 to be precise. That is a blowout number. We've seen nothing like it. It shows, by the by, that the labor market is still strong, consumers and wage earners are still strong. As I said, America is working. I think people are underestimating the underlying strength of this economy. And I want to also add this. It is a middle-class boom. This is a middle-class boom based on census data and other sources. In just 2.5 years, we've generated, after tax, $5,000 increase in income. That's inflation adjusted. $5,000. It's roughly a 7% increase from the prior administration. I think people overlook the fact that this is a middle-class boom. And one last point on the middle-class boom. Just in today's report on wages, overall wage gains were 3% for the past 12 months. That's a good number by itself. But non-supervisory production workers up 3.5%. So actually, the non-supervisory production workers are doing better than their managers. At 66,000, there's a middle-income wage boom. It's a $5,000 after-tax increase in what my former boss, Ronald Reagan, used to call take-home pay. That is a huge improvement in just 2.5 years. And I think President Trump's policies, look, President Trump's policies to rebuild this economy, low taxes, deregulation, opening up energy, fighting for lower trade barriers, these things are all paying off. We've had headwinds from an overly tight monetary policy that fortunately now is swinging into more accommodation. We've had headwinds from a very poor story in Europe where they're virtually in a recession. But because of these incentive-oriented supply-side policies, Businesses are flourishing, workers are flourishing, middle-income families are flourishing. 303,000 jobs. That's the real accounting for this month's number.
Can I just ask for your comment on the other side of the coin? We found today Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren's plan for Medicare for all, a cost of $52 trillion over 10 years. $20 trillion of that would come from a new payroll tax on employers and corporations, $9 trillion on a Medicare tax of some sort, and the rest would come from the rich. I mean, that means that the middle class in America is going to pay more in tax. But my question is, what do you think that would do, if implemented? What do you think that would do to the economy?
Oh, I think it would be devastating to the economy. I mean, this idea of Medicare for all and the so-called Green New Deal and other proposals I've heard, I don't want to get into politics. On policy grounds, this would have a devastating, catastrophic effect, would probably take out as much as 15 to 20% of our entire GDP. These numbers run upwards of $100 trillion. And let's get really serious about this. Let's get where, for example, at a recent forum here in Washington, Larry Summers, who is a Democratic advisor, agreed with others. The only way you can even think about covering this massive spending program, which would deny 180 million people their own insurance, okay? The only way is for deep, heavy, onerous, middle-class tax increases. Let's be very clear. It is the middle class who would have to pay the extra $100 billion or more to finance this kind of socialist government takeover of health care. It would have a catastrophic effect on the economy. And all these numbers that we're seeing, all these numbers on incomes for households, on wage increases, on jobs, all these numbers would literally evaporate. And by the by, so would the stock market.
Okay. We haven't talked much about China trade recently. It's receded from the front burner. But the Communist Party in Beijing has just wrapped up a 4-day meeting, and they want to strengthen sovereignty. They want to strengthen Xi Jinping's leadership position. They want to increase supervision over the economy and governance of companies in China. They've taken a very hard line, solidifying that hard line behind Xi Jinping. How can you do a trade deal, an extensive trade deal, with a country that's retreating into an extremely hard-line authoritarian regime? How do you get them to change?
Well, look, I can't really speak to the issues of the internal Chinese communist politicking. I can't really speak to those issues. Here's what I know regarding the trade deal. President Trump has been very optimistic about the trade deal. So have our lead negotiators, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Trade Ambassador Lighthizer. As you and I are talking right now, those principals are negotiating right now. Liu He, Vice Premier from China, and Mr. Mnuchin and Mr. Lighthizer. I mean, literally, as you and I are talking, they are negotiating. Take a look at the reports or the statements coming out of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, the Chinese Commerce Ministry, Chinese Finance Ministry. They're all positive comments. Now, the deal on phase one is not yet completed, okay? However, having said that, the agriculture chapter is virtually completed. And by the way, it's not just buying another $40 or $50 billion of farm ags, although that's very important. It also will open up and reduce a lot of barriers and onerous regulations that will allow American farmers, who are the most productive in the world, to export to China. That's point number one. Point number two, the financial services chapter, where American companies will be able to get to 100% ownership, insurance, security firms, investment banks, commercial banks. That chapter is virtually wrapped up. The currency stability and manipulation chapter is virtually wrapped up. Enormous progress has been made on the intellectual property theft issues. That one's not completed, but there's lots of progress. Forced transfer of technology, there's been some progress, but that will probably slip into phase two. Here's my point, Stuart. Apart from the Communist Party politics, I'm no expert on that. The actual specifics of phase one of the trade deal, are moving along very well. Positive, constructive, steady talks going on. President Trump himself has tweeted several times that he's looking forward to a completion of phase one, and he's looking forward to finding a new venue to meet with President Xi of China. So I'm pretty optimistic about that story. It's not completed yet, to be sure, but I'm quite optimistic.
Larry, are you prepared to forecast 3% growth for the economy by the early part of next year?
I am. I will. Look, we've had 2 straight 2% quarters.
Yep.
Soft, all right? We faced incredibly severe monetary policy headwinds. I wish they hadn't, but they did. I think that was a mistake. On the other hand, that obstacle is now being gradually removed. So the target rate is down to 1.5 to 3/4. The balance sheet is again growing. The monetary base is growing, and the yield curve is normalizing. So long-term rates are rising above short-term rates. Those are good signs. That removes an obstacle to growth. I think that'll get us back to the 3% plus where we were for most of 2017 and most of 2018. I think that's a plus. I think the China deal is a plus. I think USMCA still has a very good outlook. That's going to be a big plus. Probably the biggest headwind we have right now is there's still a recession in Europe. We sell a lot of goods manufacturers to Europe. I wish they would cut taxes and deregulate, maybe take a leaf from the successes of President Trump. The Brexit story, I'm not sure. It looks to me like there's a deal going on, but then again, and Stu, you know more about this stuff than I do.
No, I don't. No, I'm American.
There's going to be, yes, you are. You're a great American. But the fact is, Prime Minister Johnson is going to call an election. I reckon he'll win the election, but what do I know? President Trump would love to do a trade deal. He would love to do a trade deal with the new United Kingdom, if you will, but we are concerned about some of the EU regulations and stipulations. We'll see how that turns out. All I know is our China trade is in the right direction. USMCA trade deals in the right direction, and today's blowout numbers with 303,000 jobs and a middle-class income boom going on. This is terrific stuff. Do not sell this economy short. Do not sell short market opening, deregulation, supply-side tax cut policies, and the president's determined effort to reduce import barriers to defend American workers and the American economy.
Larry Kudlow, you have the unequaled ability to get everything in. So I've got one last one for you. President Trump leaving New York, going to be a permanent resident of Florida. A, do you blame him? B, are you going to follow?
No, I do not blame him one bit. All right, I'll leave it there. Am I going to, Stu, I'm a day-at-a-time guy. Right here, I'm talking to you. It's a little bit chilly here in Washington, D.C., but I am enjoying the greatest job of my life. It's a great honor for me to work with President Trump. All I know is today, my saintly wife, Judy, and I live in a townhouse in Washington, D.C., and we are thrilled and blessed to be here.
And we hope you are well indeed, Larry Kudlow. That's from us to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kudlow, we always thank you, and come back again soon. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay.